Okay. All right. So we're starting off with Cognitive Theory of Development by Jean Piaget, who lived from 1896 to 1890. We're going over lifespan theories around chapter 9.2. Jean Piaget is another stage theorist who studied childhood development. Instead of approaching development from a psychoanalytical and psychosocial perspective, Piaget focused on children's cognitive growth. He believed that thinking is a central aspect of development and that children are naturally inquisitive. However, he said that children do not think and reason like adults. His theory of cognitive development holds that our cognitive abilities develop through specific stages, which exemplifies the discontinuity approach to development. As we progress to a new stage, there is a distinct shift in how we think and reason. You have a photo of Jean Piaget saying that he spent over 50 years studying children and how their minds develop. Piaget said that children develop schemata to help them understand the world. Schemata are concepts or mental models that are used to help us categorize and interpret information. By the time children have reached adulthood, they have created schemata for almost everything. When children learn new information, they adjust their schemata through two processes: assimilation and accommodation. First, they assimilate new information or experiences in terms of their current schemata. Assimilation is when they take in information that is comparable to what they already know. Accommodation describes when they change their schemata based on new information. This process continues as children interact with their environment. For example, 2-year-old Abdul learned that the schemata for dogs because his family has a Labrador Retriever. When Abdul sees other dogs in his picture books, he says, "Look, mommy, dog." Thus, he has assimilated them into his schemata for dogs. One day, Abdul sees a sheep for the first time and says, "Look, mommy, dog." Having a basic schemata that a dog is an animal with 4 legs and fur, Abdul thinks all furry, 4-legged creatures are dogs. When Abdul's mom tells him that the animal he sees is a sheep, not a dog, Abdul must accommodate his schemata for dogs to include more information based on his new experiences. Abdul's schemata for dog was too broad, since not all furry, 4-legged creatures are dogs. He now modifies his schema for dogs and forms a new one for sheep. Like Freud and Erikson, Piaget thought development unfolds in a series of stages, approximately associated with age ranges. He proposed a theory of cognitive development that unfolds in 4 stages: sensorimotor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. Piaget's stages of cognitive development. From age 0 to 2, 2 years. The stage is sensorimotor, and it is described as the world experienced through senses and actions, and developmental issues may include object permanence and stranger anxiety. Ages 2 to 6, pre-operational. Kids use words and images to represent things, but lack logical reasoning. This can result in pretend play, egocentrism, language issues, or development issues. If it's not, nurtured properly or addressed properly. From 7 to 11 years, this is the concrete operational stage where children attempt to understand concrete events and analogies logically and perform arithmetical math math operations, arithmetical operations. Conservation, mathematical, and transformations issues could result, if not addressed or engage in formal operations and utilize abstract reasoning. Developmental issues could include abstract logic and moral reasoning. Could have issues with moral reasoning. The first stage is the sensory motor stage, which lasts from birth to about 2 years old. During this stage, children learn about the world through their senses and motor behavior. Young children put objects in their mouth to see if the items are edible, and once they can grasp concepts, they may shake or bang them to see if they make sounds. Between 5 and 8 months old, the child develops object permanence, which is the understanding that even if something is out of sight, it still exists. According to Piaget, young infants do not remember an object after it has been removed from sight. Piaget studied infants' reactions when a toy was first shown to an infant and then hidden under a blanket. Infants who had already developed object permanence would reach for the hidden toy, indicating that they knew it still existed, whereas infants who had not developed object permanence would appear confused. Where did it go? Where did it go? I don't know where it went. Just disappeared. All right. In Piaget's view, around the same time children develop object permanence, they also begin to exhibit stranger anxiety. Stranger danger, which is a fear of unfamiliar people. Babies may demonstrate this by crying and turning away from a stranger, by clinging to a caregiver, or by attempting to reach their arms toward familiar faces such as parents. Stranger anxiety results when a child is unable to assimilate the stranger into an existing schema. Therefore, she can't predict what her experience with that stranger will be like, which results in a fear response. Piaget's second stage is the preoperational stage. Which is from approximately 2 to 7 years old. In this stage, children can use symbols to represent words, images, and ideas, which is why children in this stage engage in pretend play. A child's arms might become airplane wings as they zoom around the room, or a child with a stick might become a brave knight with a sword. Children also begin to use language in the preoperational stage, but they cannot understand adult logic or mentally manipulate information. The term operational refers to logical manipulation of information, so children at this stage are considered to be pre-operational. Children's logic is based on their own personal knowledge of the world so far, rather than on conventional knowledge. For example, Dad gave a slice of pizza to 10-year-old Kiko and another slice to her 3-year-old brother, Kenny. Kenny's pizza was cut into 5 pieces, so Kenny told his sister he got more pizza than she did. Children in this stage cannot perform mental operations because they have not developed an understanding of conservation, which is the idea that even if you change the appearance of something, it is still equal in size as long as nothing has been removed or added. During this stage, we also expect children to display egocentrism, which means that the child is not able to take the perspective of others. The child at this stage thinks that everyone sees, thinks, and feels just as they do. Let's look at Kenny and Kiko again. Kiko's birthday is coming up, so their mom takes Kenny to the toy store to choose a present for his sister. He selects an Iron Man action figure for her, thinking that if he likes the toy, his sister will too. An egocentric child is not able to infer the perspective of other people and instead attributes his own perspective. Piaget's third stage is the concrete operational stage, which occurs from about 7 to 11 years old. In this stage, children can think logically about real or concrete events. They have a firm grasp on the use of numbers, and they start to employ memory strategies. They can perform mathematical operations and understand transformations, such as addition is the opposite of subtraction, and multiplication is the opposite of division. In this stage, children also master the concept of conservation. Even if something changes shape, its mass, volume, and number stay the same. For example, if you pour water from a tall, thin glass to a short, fat glass, you still have the same amount of water. Remember Kiko and Kenny and the pizza? How did Kiko know that Kenny was wrong when he said that he had more pizza? Children in the concrete operational stage also understand the principle of reversibility, which means that objects can be changed and then returned back to their original form or condition. Take, for example, water that you poured into the short, fat glass. You can pour water from the fat glass back to the thin glass and still have the same amount, minus a couple of drops. The fourth and last stage of Piaget's theory is the formal operational stage, which is from about age 11 to adulthood. Whereas the children in the concrete operational stage are able to think logically only about concrete events, children in the formal operational stage can also deal with abstract ideas and hypothetical situations. Children in this stage can use abstract thinking to problem solve, look at alternative solutions, and test these solutions. In adolescence, a renewed egocentrism occurs. For example, a 15-year-old with a very small pimple on her face might think it's huge and incredibly visible, under the mistaken impression that others must share her perceptions. Beyond formal operational thought. As with the major contributors of theories of development, several of Piaget's ideas have come under criticism based on the results of further research. For example, several contemporary studies support a model of development that is more continuous than Piaget's discrete stages. Many others suggest that children reach cognitive milestones earlier than Piaget describes. People are different. Some earlier, some later. It's around the same time. Yeah. According to Piaget, the highest level of cognitive development is formal operational thought, which develops between 11 and 20 years old. However, many developmental psychologists disagree with Piaget, suggesting a fifth stage of cognitive development known as the post-formal stage. In post-formal thinking, decisions are made based on situations and circumstances, and logic is integrated with emotions as adults develop principles that depend on contexts. One way that we can see the difference between an adult in post-formal thought and an adolescent in formal operations is in terms of how they handle emotionally charged issues. It seems that once we reach adulthood, our problem-solving abilities change. As we attempt to solve problems, we tend to think more deeply about many areas of our lives, such as relationships, work, politics. Because of this, post-formal thinkers are able to draw on past experiences to help them solve new problems. Problem-solving strategies using post-formal thought vary depending on the situation. What does this mean? Adults can recognize, for example, that what seems to be an ideal solution to a problem at work involving a disagreement with a colleague may not be the best solution to a disagreement with a significant other. Connect the concepts. Neuroconstructivism. The genetic environmental correlation you've learned about, genetic environmental correlation, it's a good one to remember. The genetic environmental correlation you've learned about it concerning the bidirectional influence of genes and the environment has been explored in more recent theories. One such theory, neuroconstructivism, suggests that neural brain development influences cognitive development. Experiences that a child encounters can impact or change the way that neural pathways develop in response to the environment. An individual's behavior is based on how one understands the world. There is interaction between neural and cognitive networks at and between each level consisting of these: genes, neurons, brain, body, and social environment. These interactions shape mental representations in the brain and are dependent on context that individuals actively explore throughout their lifetimes. An example of this would be a child who may be genetically predisposed to a difficult temperament. They may have parents who provide a social environment in which they are encouraged to express themselves in an optimal manner. The child's brain would form neural connections enhanced by that environment, thus influencing the brain. The brain gives information to the body about how it will experience the environment. Thus, the neural and cognitive networks work together to influence genes. In other words, attenuating temperament. Body, in other words, may be less prone to high blood pressure, and social environment, in other words, may seek people who are similar to them. Sociocultural theory of development. Lev Vygotsky was a Russian psychologist who proposed a sociocultural theory of development. He suggested that human development is rooted in one's culture. A child's social world, for example, forms the basis for the formation of language and thought. The language one speaks and the ways a person thinks about things are dependent on one's cultural background. Vygotsky also considered historical influences as key to one's development. He was interested in the process of development and the individual's interactions with their environment. All right. Moral theory development. A major task beginning in childhood and continuing into adolescence is discerning right from wrong. Psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg, who lived from 1927 to 1987, extended upon the foundation that Piaget built regarding cognitive development. Kohlberg believed that moral development, like cognitive development, follows a series of stages. To develop this theory, Kohlberg posed moral dilemmas to people of all ages, and then he analyzed their answers to find evidence of their particular stage of moral development. Before reading about the stages, take a minute to consider how you would answer one of Kohlberg's best-known moral dilemmas, commonly known as the Heinz dilemma. All right, so here's the example. Let's see. In Europe, a woman was near death from a special kind of cancer. There was one drug that the doctors thought might save her. It was a form of radium that the druggist in the same town had recently discovered. The drug was expensive to make, but the druggist was charging 10 times what the drug cost him to make. He paid $200 for the radium and charged $2,000 for a small dose of the drug. The sick woman's husband, Hines, went to everyone he knew to borrow the money, but he could only get together about $1,000, which is half of what it cost. He told the druggist that his wife was dying and asked him to sell it cheaper or let him pay later. But the druggist said, "No, I discovered the drug and I'm going to make money from it." So Hines got desperate and broke into the man's store to steal the drug for his wife. Should the husband have done that? Um, I mean, morally, if you want to say ethically, technically no, but I mean, I think just overall, you're saving the wife's life over this guy just getting paid. So I'd say, fuck that guy. Take the shit, save your wife. That's what I would do. If it was my wife dying, I'm like, fuck that dude. I don't give a shit about his profits. I'm gonna save my wife. And if you're the dude, I mean, I don't know, kind of be um more open to like the smarter economically and it's like realize the demand and like who the fuck's gonna like if people can't afford it, like who's gonna pay it? I mean, like put it on credit, even charge them interest. There's different ways you can go about it. I blame the drug dealer. He's not being smart about it. He could have done other things. He could have been less stubborn and search for other viable solutions. Give him a loan. He was able to scrape up some money. He can do it again. Now his wife and him are alive. Now his wife can work. Now she can help work to pay it off too. I think the drug dealer or the druggist was short-sighted. So I'll say, yeah, this guy playing Robin Hood, good for him. Necessity. It wasn't just out of desire, it was out of necessity. If it was just like stealing for the hell of it, and be like, yeah, no. Like if the wife was fine, was like, I just want it. If you don't get it from me, I'm not going to put out. And then he just gets it. Like, okay, that's different. Like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. But the wife is dying. Yeah, no, save the wife. You did good, bud. You did good. How would you answer this dilemma? Kohlberg was not interested in whether you answered yes or no to the dilemma. Instead, he was interested in the reasoning behind your answer. After presenting people with this and various other moral dilemmas, Kohlberg reviewed people's responses and placed them in different stages of moral reasoning. According to Kohlberg, an individual progresses from the capacity for pre-conventional morality before age 9 to the capacity for conventional morality, early adolescence to and toward attaining post-conventional morality once formal operational thought is attained, which only a few fully achieve. Kohlberg placed in the highest stage responses that reflected the reasoning that Hines should steal the drug because his wife's life is more important than the pharmacist making money. Boom, that's fine. The value of a human life overrides the pharmacist's greed. Basically, yeah. Because alive, that wife can produce more for society than that pharmacist's money or a pharmacist would have made. And on top of that, that value the wife would be contributing is more valuable than the money that that pharmacist may have likely put back into the economy. He might have actually just kept it, saved it, could have invested in other things, but I think the potential, it's the wife's potential for productivity is greater than the potential for productive action derived from the pharmacist's money. Okay. So level 1, pre-conventional morality. Stage 1, obedience and punishment. Behavior driven by avoiding punishment. Stage 2, individual interest. Behavior driven by self-interest and rewards. Level 2, conventional morality. Stage 3, interpersonal behavior driven by social approval. Stage 4, authority, behavior driven by obeying authority and conforming to social order. Level 3, post-conventional morality. Stage 5, social contract, behavior driven by balance of social order and individual rights. Stage 6, universal ethics, behavior driven by internal moral principles. This is figure 9.6. Kohlberg identified 3 levels of moral reasoning: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional, each level associated with increasingly complex stages of moral development. It is important to realize that even those people who have the most sophisticated post-conventional reasons for some choices make other choices for the simplest of pre-conventional reasons. Many psychologists agree with Kohlberg's theory of moral development, but point out that moral reasoning is very different from moral behavior. Sometimes what we say we would do in a situation is not what we actually do in that situation. In other words, we might talk the talk, but not walk the walk. How does this theory apply to people of different genders? Kohlberg in 1969 felt that more men than women moved past stage 4 in the moral development. He went on to note that women seem to be deficient in their moral reasoning abilities. These ideas were not well received by Carol Gilligan, a research assistant of Kohlberg. Yeah, there you go. You're going to have somebody speak out against it. Carol Gilligan, a research assistant at Kohlberg. Ooh, she was his assistant too. She was like, "Oh hell no!" It's like my boss spouting out a bunch of bullshit. All right. So she consequently developed her own ideas of moral development. In her groundbreaking book, A Different Voice: Psychological Theory in Women's Development, by Gilligan in 1982, criticized her former mentor's theory because it was only based on upper-class white men and boys. She argued that women are not deficient in the moral reasoning. She proposed that different genders reason differently. Girls and women focus more on staying connected and the importance of interpersonal relationships. Therefore, in the Heinz dilemma, many girls and women respond that Heinz should not steal the medicine. Their reasoning is that if he steals the medicine, is arrested, and is put in jail, then he and his wife will be separated and she could die while he is still in prison. Huh. That creating a whole new story. But his wife's alive. I would think that the women would vouch for the wife being alive. I thought they would want to save her. Okay, it's interesting. All right, take a break. Lifespan theories, nice. All right, got a good time. Oh, I need to go work out. I ate way too much. Too many tacos. I think I got the momentum going with Taco Tuesday. Hit the gym today. Work out the body and the brain. Yeah.